Thank you very much, Dave. When Kate Lyons first applied for a job with the Ontario Provincial Police Force, a male officer told her that women have no place in law enforcement. How wrong was that? But in a career that spanned 33 years, Kate Lyons climbed the ranks from patrol cop to undercover officer to only the second Canadian ever to graduate from the FBI's elite criminal profiling program. Along the way, she worked on some of the country's highest profile murder cases, including the murders of Kristen French, Tori Stafford, the disappearance of Michael Dunahee. Now she's compiled some of the stories in a fascinating new book called Crime Scene: From Patrol Cop to Profiler, My Stories from Behind the Yellow Tape. Thankfully, Kate Lyons joins me this morning. Thank you so much for coming in, Kate. When you and I were chatting, when you were sitting on the couch in the green room waiting to come on, you said you did not want to do a normal kind of crime book. You wanted to switch the focus away from the crimes and the criminals to the families of the victims.
Yes, yes.
Now, why'd you do that? Well,
I thought, you know what, I thought it was time for stories about just the good guys. I mean, on many of these high-profile cases, as you mentioned, and the victims, some who survive, and the stories that I tell in my book. Others, unfortunately, I'm telling their stories through the interviews that I had with their family members, that type of thing. But I thought enough has been written about the bad guys. Let's hear about the good guys, the families, the survivors, the police officers, and the other people that are impacted so much by these cases that we never hear about. School friends, teachers, that type of thing. So that's what I wanted to concentrate on.
Yeah. Before we go any further, what was it like for you kind of breaking into the police ranks?
Yeah.
I mean, you touched on it in the book. I've read it, but I mean, you... it must have been terrible.
Oh, you know what?
Like
it was
the stereotypes.
Wonderful. It was
wonderful. It was? Oh, good. Okay.
You know what? You run up against people. I think anybody in their career is always going to have some naysayers about something that you're doing. And that officer, you know, I asked him, tell me candidly what you think, and he gave me a candid response.
Sure.
But I've always thought, you know, if I was ever he was actually someone who was interviewing my family, and before I became a police officer.
Like a background type of thing?
Background check, character check, that type of thing. So I said, I hope I'm able to prove you wrong. And
you did.
I think I did.
Yeah,
I think I did have a place in policing.
You ended your career as the chief superintendent, right, of the OPP?
I did, yes.
Yeah, that's not just a cop anymore. That's not just a constable, right? So
no, well, and important work done at every level. But yes, I was able to achieve that rank, and then have you know, some influence over other officers in other areas of the organization, many of which I'd worked in before. So it was a nice way to finish my career in that position.
You went to the FBI's school on criminal profiling and graduated right before the movie Silence of the Lambs came out, a very famous movie, of course, kind of highlighting what you were doing for a living.
Yes.
When did you know that you had that type of brain and that you were interested in that? Like, was there a certain case that kind of clicked for you or anything like that?
When I was working, I had been working in uniform, and then I was working in a variety of different other, you know, fraud investigations. Undercover. I'd done some time working undercover. And I got involved in a serial sexual assault investigation. It was the first time I'd ever worked violent crime. I hadn't worked in the violent crime area before, and I remember finishing that case going, this is where I want to be. I want to work with these types of crimes. In these cases, I was very impacted by working with victims and hearing their stories and trying to help them through, obviously, the criminal phase, but also sometimes on a personal level as well. And it was not long after that position at the FBI came up, and I knew that was something I wanted to do.
Yeah, you jumped at it,
I did.
Speaking of the emotions and kind of that type of thing, you've described that this book is kind of bringing your career, 33 years in the police service, to a close.
Yes.
Because you can now tell stories, because you're not, you know, wearing the badge anymore.
Yes.
You can tell stories of the families.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the first thing I did when I wanted to write this book. I contacted all of those families and said, are you okay with this? Because it wasn't lost on me that I learned a lot of these details from them in circumstances that were confidential. And so my own police organization that I'd worked for gave me permission if the victims were okay with it, or their families. And so I did that, and I actually visited all of the graves, or in those cases where people were never located, the last place they were seen, and I said a little prayer to them and said, I'm going to tell your story, and you're not going to be forgotten in all of this.
Nice. That's a great way to put it. If you want to meet Kate, by the way, Kate Lyons, you can meet her at Owl's Nest Books, of course, in the Britannia part of the city, 815A, 49th Avenue Southwest, just off Elbow Drive. Tomorrow, 7 o'clock, you're going to be chatting with people and signing books and all those things?
I am really looking forward to it.
You're going to get lots of people picking your brain, I'm sure. I'm sure. Thank you so much for coming in this morning, Kate. Nice to meet you. And really interesting book. Check it out. Check it out, indeed.